Hey Donnie, how's it going? I'm in back in Shanghai now, but I just got back from Taiwan where I was able to interview my good friend Rishikesh Ramachandran, Rishi for short. Rishi's a really interesting guy who set up his own international business consulting outfit, as well as a call center in India and a headhunting firm based in Korea, and as well as a chicken and beer place with a special twist, also based out of Seoul. Anyway, interesting guy with a really interesting background. I hope you enjoy the interview and listen on. So, first of all, let's start. Rishi, thanks for joining me here. And if we could start off with, first of all, what your business is, IBI Consulting, and what you guys do in general.
Well, IBI Consulting is one of the companies in what is now Group IBI, which essentially is a bunch of companies located around the Asia Pacific region, by and large doing market research and business consulting work, focused not so much on traditional consumer research as most people know it, but more on providing market insights and competitive intelligence services to foreign companies or multinational companies around the region. So that in a nutshell is what we do. And over the years, we set up first in 2006, and it's been 8 years running now. We started out of Korea and Hong Kong, and we're now in Singapore, India, and we do have a token presence in the US as well.
Anyway, I guess what I'm curious about is how you got into it, because exactly when I first met you, you were working for the man, as was I. And although you kind of were the man, I guess, at that point too, because you were heading up the division. But I know you were a reporter before that. I think back in India, right? And
Yes.
and then in the UK as well, or something like that. Anyway, if you could just briefly say how you got to that point.
Okay. Yeah, well, I started my career as a business journalist. I did that for about 3.5 years. That was in India. And I did a few months of that once I moved to Korea as well, and I moved to Korea to do what was then called a mid-career scholarship program in Korean studies, which I took up purely because I got funding for that. And apart from all the partying, there was a bit of work done on the side as well, which ultimately led me to landing a job for a company called Asia Market Intelligence, which later on became Sinovate, and that's the company you and I worked for at that time.
Right.
So that's how I got into it. But the key point, I guess, the key thread is that even while I was in journalism, much of what I was doing was marketing analysis. So I was writing mainly for the marketing section of the newspaper, studying industries, studying companies, studying or looking into case studies of companies that did things right or did things wrong when it came to marketing. So that was the link that took me into the next job in Korea.
Okay.
And then on it went from marketing analysis to research and then to consulting.
And so were you approached by AMI Research, or were you looking around for new opportunities yourself?
No, the person who was trying to set up, or he had set up a token consulting practice at that time within the company. He had put out a job ad, I think, a job posting through his colleague at the uni where I was doing my program.
Okay.
Looking for a project manager, come research editor, come jack of all trades. So I said, well, it sounds a bit like me, so why not apply? And then, yeah, I think I applied for it and then I forgot about it because they didn't contact me for about a month and a half. And I remember I was traveling in China at that time, and then I got this one line of an email saying, well, if you're still interested, do get in touch. So yeah, then I got in touch, and a week later I was on the job.
Whoa. Well, and so how did you transition from there? Because there again, I know more or less, but I'll butcher it again. From there to IBI Consulting, like to
Right.
setting out doing your own thing, basically.
Right. No, that was a rather long, a much longer journey than from journalism to landing a job in Korea. Now, once I joined Asia Market Intelligence, it, as these things turn out in the corporate world, it so happened that they wanted to grow quickly, and then the person who was my then boss, he suddenly left, and there was a bit of a chaotic phase. And then I put forward a business plan, and so they gave me the job. So I built up the division from there on, which you're well aware of. You there at the same time.
Yeah.
So that lasted about 4 years, 4.5 years, and by then, Cinewit, or what was Asia Market Intelligence, got acquired. It became Cinewit during all those 3 or 4 years. So it was a nice experience, just going again. It had a very startup kind of culture in there at that time when it was small.
Yeah.
And to go from there to getting acquired, and going from a small company to a medium-sized company, and then being part of a large listed group, that itself was a learning curve in a lot of ways. And of course the business grew during that point, but at some point, they reached a saturation point where I had to look out for other things. And I think I left them in middle of 2004 to join advertising, which is an interesting jump.
Oh, right, yeah. I skipped that one altogether, yeah.
Yeah. So, but that was helpful in the sense that I was joining a much larger company. I mean, it was part of the Samsung Group, and obviously a much more lucrative position than what I was on at that time in the consulting space. But even within advertising, they actually put me into research and strategy planning. My official title was global account planning director or something like that. It had a rather fancy ring to it.
Yeah.
But essentially, most of the research that happened in the company went through me. Most of the non-traditional research / consulting projects, again, they pulled me into some of those purely because of my background. And that was it had its upsides and downsides. But I think a year and a half at Chail Communications, which is Samsung's in-house advertising agency. That was a pretty useful stint.
And so
that,
yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, well, so that then how was that transition from that to IBI Consulting?
Yeah, well, that's the interesting link, because I think about a year and a half there, and I realized that I'm not cut out for a large company corporate career.
Right.
Because essentially that meant I would have to spend the next 15 or 20 years in that company to work my way up to like the top management.
Yeah.
Well, that put in perspective with the fact that I went through a rather fast learning curve and a rather fast trajectory at Cinewit before that, of starting small and then really becoming quite senior there within like 4.5 years.
Yeah.
So these two were quite in sharp contrast to each other, and I realized pretty soon that I'm probably more comfortable with a smaller organization, and by that time I'd started thinking, how about doing something on my own, so that I can use all this management experience, put it to use, and see what comes of it. And by then I'd saved up enough money as well to set up a company on my own. So yeah, I think about a year into the Chail job, the brain started working on it, and then about 6 months later, I said, enough is enough. Let's move on and do it.
And so I'm curious, like, how did you get your first customers? Were they people you already knew, or how when you set up on your own, how do you go about getting your first clients?
Well, I think one of the things that the Cinewit job had trained me on, again, a lot of it learning by doing, was to go out and look for new customers and how to land them, even without having a powerful brand that you can latch on to. Because Cinewit became a big brand later on. Actually, it became a bigger brand after I left. But when we were working there, if you remember, Asia Market Intelligence was a very small company.
Yeah.
And to take that company to bigger pitch it and land projects, obviously that gave me confidence, essentially. That was what was the biggest learning out of that whole experience. So yeah, I said once I set up, I'll do the exact same thing, probably a bit wiser by then. So instead of relying on just knocking doors, I'd go around tapping into contacts that I already had, try and get referrals. Nothing like tapping into people you'd worked for before or clients you'd worked for before because they knew you. And in our business, anyone remotely experienced knows that the project is only as good as the project manager.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter which brand you work for. It doesn't matter how big you are, and if you are capable as a project manager, you get things done. So that's what I did. So I remember going in, looking up a few old friends I had in the industry, and I think two of them gave me projects. One came out of Hong Kong, and that partly explained why I first Hong Kong was one of the first offices I set up along with Seoul, and the second one came out of Korea. So we started off with two projects which were roughly $8,000 each. Very small when you think of it these days, but yeah, it was enough to get going.
Nice. Well, and how many people were you at first in IBI Consulting or the?
Just me and a junior researcher. That was it.
Oh, okay.
When we got, yeah. Then as we got a couple of more projects, then I hired one more person, and then we sort of started working from there on.
And how big would you say you are now as a company? I mean, just, well, I mean, however you like in terms of number of clients or in terms of, I don't know if you can talk about revenue or anything like that, but in terms of any other metric that you can use.
Well, we're still a small consulting practice. I mean, if we go purely by our research offering, which is our bread and butter, we've got all these locations, and that's mainly because we've got clients in those locations, and we need to have somebody there, either myself or one of my colleagues, looking at those clients and managing them. So we're still a small company, but I think the key difference is that all of the people in the company, and we've got 12 full-timers around the region, plus a whole bunch of part-timers and freelance consultants. So all bunched up, there's probably 40 or 50 people that collectively form Team IBI. But I think the key difference is at any given time compared to when we started, we're probably doing about 7 or 8 projects at a time now, as against running around scrambling for 1 or 2 and then wondering where the next project is going to come from.
Yeah.
And the other big metric is that we don't necessarily go around looking for projects now. They come to us. On average, we get a few inquiries every week. Okay. So we are in a position to, just live off our reputation and track record, as against going out and doing, absolute balls out cold calling, and we still do a bit of that. I mean, I have appointed somebody to do that, but I don't do that myself anymore.
Yeah. Because
we do have the reputation, track record, and the cushion to rely on. So I think that's a big difference.
When you were setting up, just looking back, I want to try to hit some milestones, if you will. Or let's start off actually with what would you say is the biggest mistake you've made, or that the biggest thing going back that was a mistake that you could have learned from, while you were setting, going on your own and setting this business up. Does anything come to mind, or any number of things?
Well, you do make mistakes along the way. I mean, that's inevitable if you're a startup company, and if you're a first time entrepreneur, you will make a few mistakes. And if you don't make mistakes, either there's something profoundly wrong with you, or you're made bulletproof. Neither of which is the case here. So yeah, we did make a number of mistakes, but I think by and large we got away without much damage. I mean, I could have done a few things differently, perhaps. I do remember over the years spending a lot of time, as I said, on cold calling and just going from door to door looking for clients and so on. In hindsight, you realize that there's probably a lot of waste of energy and waste of time and money. Instead, if we had focused on leveraging as much of your contacts and past clients and relationships a bit more than what we did. We did quite a bit of that, but I think we could have done a better job of that in the beginning, so that more of the business would have come from there.
Right.
As against spending a lot of time trying to get new clients, many of whom, listen to you for hearing something new, but at the end of it doesn't necessarily translate into monies. So,
Right.
That's just an example. Yeah.
Yeah,
A few
actually,
things.
I've found recently that I think now most of my new clients are exactly referrals from clients I currently have. And so, yeah, I started just, telling my current clients that, I'll get them a discount for every client they refer to me because, yeah, it's definitely working better than cold calls and cold emails.
Absolutely, yeah.
And well, and in terms of setting up a business in Korea, was there any like, I imagine, and any headaches or anything that was, uh, say Korea specific with having to set up your business or to set up shop there? That anything that struck you as different
Well,
or
actually, I mean, to be fair to the Korean foreign investment policy, I mean, their rules are pretty straightforward. There's no serious gray area there. The only trouble I'd had, because I was already living in Korea and working in Korea. In most other countries, if you're living and working there, typically if you have a certain minimum startup capital, whatever the government specifies the amount is, you can normally set up a company there if you're already living there. But in Korea, the thing is, the foreign investment or the foreign direct investment law says that you have to necessarily bring in that money from overseas.
oh really?
Yeah, it cannot be money that you've saved up in Korea, which can be directly pumped into a business. So that was my struggle, because whatever money I had saved up as capital was sitting in Korea.
Right.
So, and I spoke to the guys at Kotra and Invest Korea that time, and they said practically the only solution is you'll have to ship that money out and bring it
Bring it
back
back
in.
in.
Yeah, yeah, you do lose a bit in terms of exchange rates and
Yeah.
all of going back and forth, and needless to mention the time and the headache. But that was a slightly annoying part, and that still is the case. In fact, I was speaking to somebody else who's trying to set up something the other day, and he said the same thing. So essentially, I had to ship the money out and then ship it to India, and obviously spend some time in India because of that, which is nice in a different way, and then bring it back in, and then register the company. So yeah, that was a slightly annoying thing to do. But apart from that, by and large, fairly easy. And I think I had it slightly easier because as soon as I said I'm setting up a company, the friends who came forward to offer different kinds of help, because there was a Korean friend of mine who came forward and he said, all right, he'll recommend a lawyer or a paralegal who can take me through all the paperwork. By then, it also helped that I could speak Korean, so I could happily interact with the lawyer and get
Right.
things done. So things like that worked out nicely. It was very timely, and people were there to lend a helping hand. And in terms of looking for office space, I already knew where would be a good spot to have it. So a lot of the practical ins and outs I'd already figured out as a result of living in Korea, for about 8 years until then.
Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise, no, it's pretty straightforward, to be honest.
And I mean, I'm curious. I know it was a number of years ago, but how much would you say it costs to set up a business there, between like lawyer fees and whatever startup capital you need? Like what if someone wanted to set up a business now, what costs would be entailed? Do you think?
Well, that's the tricky part, because it depends on the type of business you're trying to set up. Ours is a pure services, professional services business, so that's cheap to set up because you don't have any serious startup costs other than your small office and a couple of workstations and telephone lines, internet lines, etc., and you're good to go.
Right.
So your initial setup cost is really quite low. Whereas if you take manufacturing or if you take any other type of business trading, if you're getting into food and beverage trading, for example, then you need to have like this minimum size for a warehouse. They'll come and inspect the storage facility and so on and so forth.
Oh, really?
Different levels of approvals you need to go through.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, I've also set up a restaurant come pub recently.
Yeah.
That has a different set of approvals you need to go through. So it purely depends on the type of business you're trying to set up. But by and large, the minimum capital requirement for anyone trying to set up a company in Korea, an incorporated company, is $100,000 US.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's actually steeper. Well, I guess, yeah, steeper than some places. Actually, yeah, it is quite steep in comparison to.
Yeah, sure. Because I've set up companies in Hong Kong and Singapore, and basically where it takes you, if you want to just get going, you can do it for like $5,000 all up,
Right.
or yeah, a couple of grand plus or minus. But in Korea, yeah, you do have to put down that 100 million won or $100,000, and that's purely the government's way of making sure that you've got enough money to get going, not just to start the business, but also for you to live there for 6 months or whatever it takes to get things going. So that's fairly steep, and unfortunately that's the way they operate. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it seems it might be, yeah, sort of prohibitive for, so let's say smaller scale people who might want to go there to set up something.
It is, and in fact, I'm relatively lucky in that sense, because when I was setting up, they only needed 50,000.
Ah, okay. Oh, wow.
They raised it about 3 years ago
Yeah.
to 100, because they realized a lot of small-time foreign individuals, see some of them seeking residency, some of them seeking to live in the country, coming from various developing economies. They were trying to do too many things in Korea without really earning an income.
Ah, yeah.
So to discourage them, they jacked up the minimum capital requirement to 100 million. But the thing is, even then, I was mentioning to somebody, actually $50,000 what they had before was actually not enough. I remember when I set up, 50,000 was enough to get me going.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to put in extra money, for example, to take an office space, because when you take up an office space, you do have something called the deposit money or the key money that you need to put
Right.
down. So that's an extra 20 grand, and then a few other expenses add up. So you end up spending 75 to 80 anyway. So,
Yeah,
so now they pushed it up to 100, which in all practical senses probably is a bit more realistic, to be honest.
Well, and as a quick explanation, also the key money, because I know Korea, I don't know any other country that operates that way, and I think it's less and less so in Korea. But they take what's called the key money, which is basically they take a huge deposit, but then they charge very little or no monthly rent. Is that more or less how it works?
That's right. Yeah, it's becoming less and less intensive in the sense that the key monies or the deposit monies are coming down. The level of money you put down and the rents are going up.
Right.
But at the same time, there's ways around that. I mean, if you go for like serviced offices, for example, there you don't have to put down key money, but then you pay a much higher monthly rent.
Right.
So it's a trade-off. I mean, you want to park a big chunk of money with your commercial landlord and pay a smaller rent or a smaller amount, or you pay up hefty sums every month and then hope everything works out.
Yeah, and well, yeah, because when I lived there, that's exactly what I had to do. I had to negotiate with the landlord and ended up paying more per month just because I didn't have that huge amount at the beginning as a deposit.
Yeah. Well, which is what most of us end up doing anyway.
Yeah. Wait, sorry, there's a lag again. I'm going to try to start this up again. Sorry, wait. And we're back again. Okay. So anyway, yeah, let's move along then. So now you have your own business that you set up and you've been, building for a while. What would you say is, what do you love most about your business or what you're doing now and, your life you've created right now, let's say?
I think the biggest advantage. I know a lot of people would like to think that the biggest advantage is is probably money, but no, that's not the case. I wish that was the case. No, the biggest advantage and satisfaction you get is one, you get to make decisions. I mean, the buck stops with you.
Right.
So there's no decisions being passed around like so and so should do this or somebody else couldn't do this because this didn't happen. So one, you get to make your own decisions. Two, I think which is the bigger one, time. You can manage your own time, and I think that's the single biggest advantage I've enjoyed the last 8 years, and I'd be very hard pressed to give that up.
Yeah.
If someone came up with some fancy $1 million offer tomorrow, because that would be if I have to give it up someday, that would be my biggest regret. That you can't wake up in the morning and make up your mind in terms of what you want to do, and somebody else dictate that you should be in at the office at 8 or 8:30, and then you sit around there till it's 6 p.m. or whatever it is.
Yeah, no, I understand you completely. I just realize how much more I value time now that I can, spend it in my own way rather than just trying to look busy while the boss is around or something. And then, so, and to counteract that, what would you say right now is your biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge is also time, incidentally, and that's because I think part of it is because I have multiple locations to look after and multiple time zones that I need to operate in. And in addition to that, middle of last year, I set up another business, which is in a completely different industry, which is in food service. I mean, it's a restaurant,
right,
pub concept, and that takes up a good deal of my time. In fact, practically that takes about 8 hours of my day as well, because it kicks off around 5 or 6 p.m. and then it goes on till about 1 a.m. So juggling those two and at the same time trying to make sure that everyone's happy and things get done. So time's become even more important now. So it's even more important that I manage my time effectively and I have that freedom to decide what should be top priority and how I should take my day one task at a time.
I mean, and you don't have you don't feel like you'd rather get, say, a project manager for Team IBI and a project manager for Fundoori, or maybe just one or the other, so that you can think about it less, let's say?
Well, yeah, no, that already happens. I mean, I do have key people appointed to make sure that things stay on track operationally. So with IBI, that's more like having good project managers who take care of things, which they do. But at the same time, there are some decisions for which you need to be there. They'd like to consult you or they want to talk to you. And likewise with the pub, Fundoori is a new concept and it's still sort of catching on in the market. Still early days, so I still need to be dialed in terms of what people think, what the staff concerns are. Firefighting. I mean, a lot of it is firefighting usually. Something or the other goes wrong and you need to fix it and so on and so forth. So it's more being there to make sure that decisions, if they can be made quicker, should be made quicker, rather than someone waiting around. Waiting around and saying that we'll deal with this when boss is here.
Exactly.
So it's more that rather than just having to be there all the time. No, it's not so much having to be there all the time. It's just that you can't switch off. You need to be switched on in some form or the other throughout the day.
So what about your ideal? What would your ideal working environment be like? I mean, you have an office there in Korea. I assume that's where you work from usually most days, right?
That's where I work from in terms of going. If you want to treat it as going into the company and working, if that's what you mean. But to be honest, most of the actual productive work gets done from home in the morning.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I'm at my most productive when I'm by myself.
Yeah.
Or when I'm traveling, when I'm on a plane, because there are no phone calls, no people, no internet, nothing to trouble you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Again, if I'm on a business trip, if I'm in a hotel like I am right now, I got a lot more done today than I'd have gotten done in 3 days in Korea,
Right. Yeah.
or 3 days in any office. Because one of the things that people often don't understand is, you assume that if you go into an office and sit there for 8 hours, you'll get a lot of things done. Not necessarily, because if you're there, especially as the boss, and this is the company boss's challenge usually. People always come to you for something. They want to discuss something with you. They want you to help them solve problems. They want you to do that, do this. Yeah, you can push back a little bit. Encourage a bit of independent thinking. You can let them try and work it out, but they know that you're there.
Yeah.
And they always want to sort of get something out of you and see if you can. And obviously, because it's your own company, you do want to get involved with the team as well. So it becomes, in that sense, yeah, your time sometimes gets a bit stretched if you're in the office too much.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're on your own, you're literally your own boss then, and
Yeah.
you just get on with things and you do whatever is in front of you, and you sort of tick the boxes much quicker.
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, no, yeah, it makes sense. And actually, I've seen. It seems with people I talk to, that usually is the case. That they need some time either at home in the morning, or someone might work like late at night or something like that when they don't get interruptions, from people in the office or something like that. And
Yeah,
so
I think the best example I can give. Sorry.
no, yeah, sorry.
No, as I said, the best example I can give you is, I think this was a year or two ago. We had a fairly big project going on, and there was a 110, 120 page report or something that needed cleaning up. Usually we give it out to somebody, give out the editing and cleaning up to somebody. I mean, the days when I sit and edit everything is long gone by. But in that particular instance, the report produced had all the contents, but it was so bad in terms of the language and the cleaning up that I took it upon myself. I said, no, I'll do this, because whoever gets this to edit probably will get messed up trying to clean it up. Since I knew the scope, I said I'll do it myself.
Yeah.
And I realized there's no way you can find the time and space to do it. So ultimately, coincidentally, at that time I was on a flight from Hong Kong to Heathrow. So I had a good 12-hour flight ahead of me. And essentially I sat through and did 9 hours of straight editing.
Yeah.
Now, in my normal daily life, that would not have happened.
Right.
It would have taken me probably a week to do it bit by bit, maybe a few pages a day, because it was really horribly put together.
Yeah.
But that was an instance of where 9 hours of straight editing got the job done, and then I still had 3 hours left for a movie and a couple of beers. So it was a good, productive trip.
Yeah. My next question is, do you have any rules or guidelines that drive and motivate you? So I guess, bits and pieces from good leaders. Or is there anything else that that you keep as a mantra to yourself or something like that?
Yeah. There are a few things. I mean, I think the first and foremost is, whatever you're doing, you need to. That needs to get you out of bed,
right,
in the morning. If it's not getting you out of bed, it's time to do something else.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons. I'm not saying that whatever I'm doing at IBI is terrible. I'm sick of it. No, that's not the point. But I think there comes a time, because I've been doing it for so many years, I can sleepwalk through it.
Right.
So it means I'm ready for a new challenge, and I need something else to get me out of bed, because with the IBI stuff, I know that I can get out of bed at noon and still be okay with it.
Yeah.
But that's not right, which means there's still like things I can do in the morning. So that's where the tandoori pub concept came, and that's how Fundoori was born. So things like that. I mean, it's something that you do needs to have passion in it, and passion's definitely important. The other part is communicating that passion to your team. I mean, those are two things which, if I have those two, I'm pretty happy usually.
Okay. For someone maybe who wanted to, do something similar, maybe set up a business in Korea or set up a business in, consulting or research like you, what advice would you give to someone in those shoes, or maybe in your shoes from 10 years ago or something like that?
Well, I think two pieces of advice that I would happily offer is one is they need to be as clear as possible who they're going after, the clients.
Right.
because I remember we went after all kinds of clients like small and medium businesses, technology companies, multinational companies. But ultimately, we figured for what we're trying to do, what we're offering, the best clients are multinational corporations for us. So gradually, we just zoomed in on them rather than going after all these smaller companies and medium-sized companies, because a lot of them can't afford to spend on services that we offer
Yeah.
unless you have a dedicated budget for it. So those things, I mean, those things we discovered as we went along. But for anyone setting out, define your customer group and see if they have the money to afford what you're trying to offer. I think that's fundamental. The second thing is your location. I mean, you could do the same thing in Hong Kong, you could do the same thing out of Singapore, you could do the same thing out of Taipei.
Right.
Again, ultimately, it depends on what kind of customers you're trying to target. And if those customers are based more out of those cities, then it's better to go and offer your services there, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm in
Right.
Hong Kong for that,
Yeah.
and I'm in Singapore next week for that. So essentially, it depends what you're trying to do.
Before going, first of all, I think you should. You've mentioned it enough times that you might as well give a pitch of Fundoori, so people know where to pass by and where to go in case they are in Seoul. So yeah, why don't you do that? Why don't you explain what Fundoori is, because it is a unique concept, like you mentioned.
It is a unique concept. Fundoori is a tandoori pub. For those of you uninitiated to tandoori is basically Indian style oven cooked chicken, obviously quite tangy and spicy. So at Fundoori, what we do is all the dishes are tandoori chicken based, except for a beef curry that we have, which we have as a special. So we've got tandoori burgers, tandoori quesadillas, tandoori wraps, and so on and so forth, along with a good collection of draft beers and spirits and cocktails. And usually, tandoori chicken is a good nibble with any type of beer or spirit, and it's usually a good combo, and it's a good base to start off the evening on. That's what we've tried to push. It's located located right in front of Samgakchi Station, which is on the Korean subway network. Lines 6 and 3 go there, and it's very easy to find. Just have to come out of exit 7 of the station. You'll see Fundoori right there, anytime from 5 p.m. onwards.
Yep. So check it out if you're in Seoul. Also, I feel dumb. I realized I went there a number of times and I never even tried the food. I guess, we're always there late night. Actually, yeah, the first time the kitchen was
Yeah.
closed too, so yeah, I wasn't able to. Now, because you kept mentioning those foods, I'm like, that sounds really good. But well, okay, next time. But they have excellent beer. I can attest to
Yeah,
that.
you can get a sneak preview if you're looking for an online shot of it. You can either go to facebook.com/Fundoori Bar,
Oh yeah.
or you can go to mydestination.com/Seoul and look for Fundoori there. We're listed there, and there's a video of us, and there's a 360-degree camera view and all of that. So you'll find all the details there.
Oh, I don't think I've seen that. And also,
Yeah.
as a reminder, Fundoori is spelled Fundoori.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.